Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count.
Dedicated to you. Know that it might be hard to believe sometimes, but you. We'll make it through. Tough times don't last forever. As long as we stick together, we'll make it through. We'll make it through.
Good evening. Edition of Plain Talk Live with yours truly. We thank you guys for joining in this evening, and this evening is unlike any other evening. Not necessarily cheerful in light of everything that we're experiencing. Our climate right now, it's really, really, really tough for us as Blacks, and I posted earlier this week that I'm deeply troubled because I feel powerless. And this evening, we're going to address some of the issues regarding or surrounding the George Floyd death and the protests and so forth that ensued after. We have our panelists that are we're going to discuss it together. But before we do, as always, I always ask God's guidance on everything that we do and say. And this evening is no different. God, I just want you to take control of whatever it is that we're going to say this evening. I pray that whatever comes out of our mouth is something not only to encourage or inspire hope, but to find some resolution in terms of what we're dealing with and how we should go forth as a people to get this resolved. It's getting to the point where we're tired and enough is enough. But I know that it's never too much for you. And we're going to place this discussion in your hands because we know that your wisdom, or the wisdom that you're going to impart in us through the words that we say, would inspire everyone that is listening to do their part to ensure that we can come out on top of this. So for this, I thank you for this evening, and I pray your blessing on everything that we're about to see. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. So, guys, joining us this evening, we have, of course, our resident, Mr. Junior George. He's going to be joining us on this panel this evening for this heated discussion. Junior, welcome. Thank you so much for hosting us on this platform. We also have our panelist, Ms. Donna Black. She's a speaker, author, and strategist founder in the Black Consulting Company based out of Rancho Cucamonga, California. Welcome. I know you're a few hours behind us, but thank you so much for joining us. Also joining us, we have Mr. Timothy Marshall, dear friend of mine. He's been in education for the past 29 years. He's an entrepreneur, a promoter, and a community activist. Welcome, Tim Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also we have Mr. Ian McDonald. He's a construction management professional, a consultant, a legal gun builder and enthusiast, concealed carry permit holder, and Second Amendment supporter. Guys, welcome Mr. McDonald to this evening's live. Thank you so much. Now, as I said,
hello, how are you?
Thank you. Yes. You know, it just seemed like we're going through this. And as I've stated to our panelists, that we've done everything you could tend to think to do when these incidents occur. We've voted. We've prayed, we've knelt, we everything that you can think of in terms of doing, we've done it. Yet still, this behavior, it persists. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know necessarily what to do. I have sons, I have grandsons, and my concern is, I mean, not even the boys, even like Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland. It's not even young men anymore. It's just open season seemingly on blacks, and we have to come to a resolve. And I don't know what the resolution is, but we're going to discuss it this evening. So, um, you know, I'll ask our panelists. The first thing that I really want to speak on is basically in terms of race relation. You're talking about the breakdown in terms of when it dramatically made a difference. You tend to think historically, dramatically, when did it make a difference? You would think, um, in terms of when we started being considered more than just indentured slaves. Is that where it started? And so maybe there's some threat that came to the other side in terms of the whites, in terms of how we were. And then here it is now we're dealing with this meltdown. So actually, ladies first, I'm going to throw that question out to Donna. Donna, I'd like to hear your take on it, please.
I think it goes way back. I don't think we've ever been given equal footing in society. I think when our Constitution was founded, our founding fathers didn't include us because at the time we were property. So going forward now, we've had certain societal contracts in place. For example, there are laws in place. If I am a good citizen and I obey the law, I deserve for my voice to be heard. And there's a certain demographic that applies to, but I don't think it necessarily applies to us, because when we voice our opinions, when we express our outrage, we're always discounted. I've heard the term more times than I care to repeat. She's an angry black woman. When you're educated and you have an opinion, you're angry. So that's the first principle there. The second thing is that if the rules are in place, it has to be predictable, meaning that whatever laws are in place that get implemented today should be the same for tomorrow. And you see it time and time again that the rules are not consistent. The laws are not consistent because what happens to one person, namely here, would never happen to another. We see it all the time. Blacks are taken into custody, they're beaten up, they're tasered. Whereas, whites, they're given glasses of water to drink, they're taken to Burger King through a drive-through. They're always considered innocent until proven guilty, and we're always guilty until we prove ourselves innocent.
I agree.
And the third thing is, authority has to be fair. And what we're experiencing right now is that people are looking at that contract and saying it doesn't apply to us, so why should I? And this starts from the top down. Leadership needs to set the example. And we're living in a time where leadership is not setting the example for how people of color should be treated. So I'm going to pause right there because I could go on and on about this.
Definitely. And I mean, I totally agree. But then I guess essentially the leadership, because it is what it is, and essentially because we weren't necessarily, it didn't start off with us being factored in. The leadership did not necessarily cater to us. So now that we're quote unquote being seen as equals, then they have to, in a sense, rewrite it without seemingly so unequal. So, Tim,
well,
go ahead. Go ahead, Donna.
Well, you're talking about 400 years of trying to untwine fabric. This is built into the fabric of our country. Mm-hmm. And, we're hearing a lot of talk about reparations, and that's a whole different subject matter that, I can get into at a later date. But here's the first lead in, is that our country has never apologized to people of color for the systematic oppression that's taken place. Never have they said, because I think that's a starting point, because if our country was to ever do that, then there will be a certain demographic of people that will realize, you know what, they are equal or they're close to equal. But it always gives, certain whites that privilege, that feeling that what happened really didn't happen, because there's also the white conspiracy theorists that think slavery didn't happen. A lot of things that we talk about didn't really happen. And, so we have to start there. We have to first acknowledge the wrongs.
Acknowledgement. I definitely agree. Well,
I think that I like to welcome everyone that tuned in to this very special program here, Plain Talk with Veron Richards. And I think Veron, it is a great idea that you decide to bring this topic to the fore. Because this is very relevant stuff. This is very relevant information that I think everyone needs to listen to and try to understand. But I think the big question that a lot of people are fighting to understand is, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where we are right now? And I was watching a video earlier today, and it kind of gave a little bit of understanding. I wanted to share it with everyone briefly, that back then, black people was brought in this place here as slaves, right? So we was already brought in as oppressed people. And from that oppression, we had to fight our way up. But black people are strong, and we're very resilient people. We always try to get up. So when slave couldn't keep us up, and they realized that we was doing things, we were still being resilient, they try other things. They try the criminal justice system to keep us down, and a number of things. And every single time that a black person tried to get up from where they came from when they first came to this country from slave, they try everything to keep us down. And at this point in time, with everything happening, and we realizing the COVID-19, and look, there's a disproportionate amount of black people that's dying from COVID-19, and then you have all these things that's happening in the prison system. We have more black people than in the prison system in Brooklyn, here in Queens. More black brothers and sisters are being arrested for absolutely nothing. In other communities, they're not. It's disproportionate. So I think with all of this, it's just boiled up to the point where we're seeing what we're seeing right now. And looking at all of this thing is not just happened out of the blues. It is that. And if we check back just a couple around the same time of the Central Park incident, where the white lady called the police officer on this black guy. And she said to him, I know what the police would do if I call you. So she had a full understanding. And we as black people, we understand all of that stuff. And the fact that we've been inside for so long, we know about the COVID situation, the disproportionate amount of people, black people that are dying, and all of this racist thing, it just burst into flames. And it's uncontrollable at this point. And I think that where Donna spoke about the contract, it is true. The contract that we sign with society, that if what we're supposed to do, then the society is supposed to treat us a certain way. We're supposed to have a flow in the contract. But if you're not going to adhere to your terms of the contract, and I'm adhering to mine, then why should I adhere to mine? So that's why I see people protesting and they're looting and they're doing everything because they want to be heard. And although I'm not supportive of the looting, but I understand why people are upset. I understand why people are frustrated at this point. I understand why people are acting out and taking to the street. I understand everything that's happening right now. Veron, your mic is off.
Am I back in?
Yes.
Yes, you're back in.
My apologies. Now, I understand the frustration, even in the looting and all of that. But what I've been hearing, seeing, I've seen it on video, it's actually some people are plants. And they're placed there strategically to make it look like the blacks who are actually peacefully protesting are the ones responsible for a lot of the burnings and the looting and the theft and so forth. It's not necessarily the protesters that are the ones that are exacting all of this, chaos. So, I mean, we got to look at that. I've heard that even there was an incident where I saw some guy strategically, seemingly, he took a hammer to the AutoZone windows and busted the windows open. And this guy, a guy in a dread or whatever hat, he saw him and approached him and was running him down. And eventually it was revealed that he was white and supposedly he is a cop. Now, we're dealing with all of that. I mean, in as much as we want to have a voice, but it seemed like every time we do what we do, then they're the oppressors who come and make it seem like we're just a bunch of mad people with no common sense. What?
Yeah.
Very uncivilized. No common sense, just doing whatever we want to do. And 10 to 1 is not necessarily that way without some form of leadership. Now, I know you're jumping in. Tim, I'm ready for you.
What do you want me? What's your question?
No. Well, we were talking about just, race relations on a whole in terms of historically and how we basically ended up here.
Well, what we have here is Donna alluded to it, where you grow up and you follow the rules, and I come from a family, church going family, and we all are educated, and we all have our degrees and everything like that, and we haven't been arrested, and we follow the laws of the land. But at the same time, the laws don't represent us at all, and people get angry. You follow the rules, you work hard, you get a job, you get your degree, you don't break the law, and I think the problem is we're playing by rules that weren't made for us.
Right.
So in our mind, oh, this is the land of the free, home of the brave, liberty and justice for all. But again, that wasn't written with us in mind. So now, when it's amended now, and they try to include us, fake inclusion of us, because they like our athletes, they like our entertainment value, they like the way we spend our money in the community, they like all those things about us, but don't get too close. Don't get too close.
Yeah.
And
I
now
want to just jump in real quick
it spills
because
over.
it's important what you're saying, the Tim, and I want you to talk a little bit more about it. That when the laws was written, when they say all man were created equally, all man was created equally, and that's in the Constitution, as they say. Did they apply that to black people? Right?
No, it wasn't written with us in mind.
No.
People.
If I may add,
Yeah.
it all boils down to one simple thing. You can be given rights and you can be given laws, etc., but the value of life has never been equal. Never. A black life has never been on equal plane or equal worth as a white life in America. And that's the reason why we treat it as such. Because we have the right for this and we have the right for that, and the law says this, etc., etc. But in the views of people, especially people of authority, a black life does not have the same value as a white life, which is expressly why when you see a white folk acting up, the police they do everything they can to try to get this person in they try to get them in custody, and they try to preserve their life because they see value in their life. But when they come at one of us, they don't see the same value. So it's like, you know what? I'm not concerned if he lives or dies anyway, because his life has no value, which is why we get the treatment that we get. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the laws. It has to do with the value that is placed on our lives historically as well as society-wise. They just don't see value in our lives.
And that I definitely believe, because this week we had an incident, and I compared the two in that we had the George Floyd incident, and simultaneously we had this young man who apparently he was mentally ill, and he killed maybe one or two people. He was on the run. They hunted him down. They found him, brought him in without incident.
Of course.
That's usually what it is when he's a person of the Caucasian
Because his
Especially,
life has value as far as I'm
exactly.
concerned.
But had it been a black person in that same, he definitely wouldn't have made it. He wouldn't have made it probably to the second victim.
No.
So there's
Yeah,
that inequality is a problem for me.
Yes,
It's a
I
problem for
agree.
all of
yeah.
us.
I agree.
But I wanna touch on this, and I want to get your guys' feedback on it because it's a very important topic, right? The fact that we as black people don't have that representation. We as black people don't have that outlet. We don't own any media. Um, we have much less representatives out there speaking on our behalf.
Hmm.
And the fact that we don't have that representation, so when something happened, and we're not strength in numbers because I spoke about it on my program last week. We're not strength in numbers because it just seems hard for us to come together again, a product of slavery. Strength in numbers. We don't have representation. We don't have media. We don't have anything to go out and with a massive force. So people they could take advantage of a community like that because they know that we do not have a mechanism to reach the masses, right? So in rebuilding a structure, or do you think that a structure needs to be rebuilt, or we as a black people need to understand where our power is because we do have power and the power is in spending. We spend
Agreed.
a disproportionate amount of money in other communities from our own black pocket, and we don't spend it within our community. But we don't understand our spending power. Our spending power has been taken advantage of, right? So in refocusing the campaign of protest, I was speaking to my audience and I'm saying probably the focus need to be on how about we use the power that we have, right? How about we use the power that we have, which is our spending power and the ability to that they know that they take advantage of and use that as power rather than going out there and rather than the riot and the other forms of protest. How about we protest that way?
It's very
Well,
difficult to do that for the black community, and unfortunately, because we tend to want instant gratification. We don't
yeah,
see big picture as in, okay, I'm
yeah,
doing this because 6 years, 7 years from now, it will bring forth X amount of fruit. We're looking for something
hmm
like, I want to do this today and I want to see it tomorrow. But
hmm
white folks teach their kids to build things for the future. So we got to start with that. Also, we got to deal with the fact that we have to know that this isn't going to be an overnight thing. Financial success and financial power and financial empowerment is not an overnight thing. And unfortunately, our community, we only see instant gratification, and we got to counter that.
Well, that
Um, uh,
go
let
ahead.
let me interject on that,
Hmm.
Ian. You make a very good point. Black people, we're the only people who we want to be comfortable, but revolution is not comfortable, man.
Not
Like
at
like
all.
the ultimate price is your life, man. And a lot of people are not willing to pay that price. They want to be around to see it, and a lot of
hmm
times that's what the sacrifice is about. That's why
Mhm.
we don't have black leaders anymore, because we saw Malcolm X get assassinated. We saw Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers get assassinated. Whenever one of them stepped up to say, and they gave their life, then everybody else was like, oh my God, you get killed when you talk up. So our leaders now are more docile, and the kumbaya variety and we shall overcome variety. And to be quite frank, a lot of them are lining their pockets with money, the same
Yeah,
money we're talking about. So I mean,
yeah.
that willingness to give the ultimate price, to pay the ultimate price, is something that's been lost on this generation of leadership.
And you have to
True.
you have to also take into account the different tactics that are used racially. When we get upset, we march, we yell, we scream, we protest. When white folks get upset, they grab their guns. When,
Hello.
when them when them people wanted not to wear their masks, what did they do? They stormed the
yep.
Capitol and they stood out there with AR-15s, was like, "Yo, this is what we want." And what they said, these are very nice people. They're just a little angry, but because that's their tactic.
They
That's
get
that is what they
excuses. We get
do.
executed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah,
they
but
do.
but, but Ian, other communities as well, they use their spending power. We know the
Hmm.
communities,
Yeah.
they
Oh,
use their
agreed.
spending
Definitely,
power.
definitely,
They will,
definitely,
they will
definitely against
go
that,
for a
but we need to do
politician and say to that politician, we're just not going to support your campaign. We're just not going. Our people is not going to support your campaign, and the politicians know that very well, and they understand that language very well, right? So they have that. They have that represent. They come with a force. They come with a force. But if I come to you and I'm trying to make change, and I'm coming to you, first of all, I don't have the numbers, I don't have the power. You're not going to take me seriously. Other communities know how to use that power, and I
From a
think it's
political standpoint, the
yeah,
money flows from the top down. It doesn't come from the bottom up.
right.
So it's like for us to say we're not going to financially support a politician, he's like, oh, so Gerber's who's financing me. I don't care what you got. So it's so financially and the politicians is a total different thing because it takes a large sum of money to do that, not a grassroots effort. Now, a grassroots effort can elect politicians from the ground up, but if you're trying to change it economically, the economics comes from the top down, and it's the ultimate trickle down theory. So it's kind of difficult to press economics on a politician. We could press economics on a community, but we can't press economics on a politician because the
Yeah,
his
but
money
the
comes from the
economics
top
in
down.
terms of our spending power and banks. How about
Agreed.
if our black dollar stops spending for X amount of period of time within a certain community because it's already not coming into our community? How about if we take that money and move it into black banks or support black? Could you imagine the magnitude of power that we will have if we engage and understand that black dollar, right?
Well, I'm going to touch on something that both Ian and Timothy said because when it comes to economics here, in the Asian community, their dollar turns hands around 6 to 7 times. In the Jewish community, that dollar changes hands around 18 times. In a Black community, that dollar does not change hands.
No,
at all.
Okay, so we're not where we need to. For one, we're not building wealth. Okay, if a Black business wants to get started, they have to self-fund. Banks are less likely to give them loans to do it. And a lot of the Black businesses that are started by women. Okay, so they have to do the startup. They have to create their business. Now, what we need to do is focus on creating wealth within our community and having that dollar turn around within our community. Because once we're able to do that, that leads to another level. Now, you mentioned earlier media. We have no media outlets. We don't have a CNN or MSNBC of our own where we can disseminate news and information. And it's unfortunate that, the people that are creating films, the Black filmmakers, are kind of pandering to certain stereotypes about us. So they don't help us very much. We need to have media outlets that disseminate news, that media outlets that disseminate programming that's positive about Black people and Black families. You notice there was a time in the 80s where we had all these programs about, Black families that, had a mother and a father and they were well-rounded. And then after a while that promoted going off to college and then that was cut.
And exactly, that now segues into what I think is foundational in terms of our education, because I mean, you're talking about foundational education. You're talking about your elementary, intermediate, and high school, secondary school level, where the consensus is that this is just a place to keep Blacks from being off the street so they don't become a nuisance, as opposed to some place of enhancing their abilities to and their capabilities to excel. And then you have the colleges or the universities that may seem to be more of a stream of income for them to have Blacks enrolled rather than having meaningful education for them, because you get them tied into the loans and the grants. Well, the loans more so. Grants, that's your pull to get them in, and then the loans they have to spend the rest of their lives paying off, because here it is that they've gotten their degrees, they've gotten whatever, and really and truly, are you giving them equal opportunity to employ them in their field of study so they can actually pay back these loans before it becomes a mountain load?
Well, as an educator, that's like tailor-made for me, because You know, my family runs a private school in Brooklyn, and that is the miracle. Public education is a miracle that we allow people who don't even care about us to teach us. People who don't even live in our communities to teach us. And the fact that so many Black people are graduating from college is a testament to their tenacity and stick-to-itiveness, because there are teachers who tell you, you're not college material.
Hello.
You should consider the armed forces. They do everything in their power. I don't live in this neighborhood. I don't care if you disrupt the class. I get paid anyway. So we have security guards who are just looking at us, police. They're looking at the students like they're criminals already, and that's at a young age. So the education that Black people have been getting, it's a miracle, and we're so awesome. It's a testament to how we are survivors through slavery, through all these hardships, through being targeted for termination, that we still exist and we're still here, but they still don't want to give us our fair share. So all of these traps are put in place because they know our power. Once we realize our power, then they realize they don't have control over us anymore. So
Definitely. And it's our resilience. Now, guys, we're going to take a station break and then come back to discuss more of this. So, guys, we're going to be back in a few.
Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Plain Talk with Veron Richards. This evening, we're discussing race relations in the U.S. and in light of the George Floyd incident and all the protests and everything that's going on in the U.S. and really and truly how we got to this point. So I have on the panel with us, we have our own Junior George, we have Ms. Donna Black, we have Timothy Marshall and Ian McDonald. They're all here as panelists. And if you have any questions, feel free to call in. You can call in on the number, I do believe it's 718-702-5720, but it's going to be placed. And if you have any comments, you can, 701-5720. You can call in and ask questions, make your comments known. If you have any contributions, feel free to just give us a call and we'll be happy to take your call in also. So we were talking about the education system, and Tim, you made that valid point of, in terms of being in an environment where the people who are charged with shaping your minds for the future, they really and truly don't give a care. So Sunday. So it's unfortunate. I mean, you do have those, and I'm not saying this is on all teachers, because as I said,
no, there's some awesome teachers.
There are.
In the public school system as well. There's some awesome teachers.
Exactly. But it just, the general consensus is that, this is where we keep them off the street. Now, my thing is the educational component. I don't think that they're prepared, or we're prepared enough to go out and be on equal footing with our white counterparts when it comes to, okay, you have standards, you have tests, you have this and you have that, but are we given the equal opportunity when it comes to higher education, or even the jobs, or even, whatever it is? Are we as valued when it comes to our I've seen it, I've heard of it, where you have people who have degrees and they've gone for an interview, and the Black person probably articulated the position, their stance on the position much better, but because this person is quote unquote they're white, they'll get considered for the job. So,
that's actually really funny, and I have a personal experience about that. I did a phone interview with the company in Delaware, and I sat on the phone for about 45 minutes discussing with the hiring director. And usually on a phone interview, after 5 or 10 minutes, if they're not interested in you, it comes to an end. But
Exactly.
I was on the phone with this woman for 45 minutes. She told me about, yeah, well, we want to bring you on, and this is what we want to do, et cetera, and we'll probably start you at X, and so on and so forth. So I got off the phone and I called the recruiter who sent me, set me up for this. And I told him, he said, great, great, sounds like you got the job. So then he calls me back 15 minutes later and says, well, the woman, they said they want to go in a different direction. And the funny reason is, 5 minutes before she called him, I saw on my LinkedIn page, this woman went to my LinkedIn page. And there's a
Wow.
picture of me on my LinkedIn page. So then she calls the recruiter, says, yeah, I think we're going to go in a different direction. So it
Wow.
happens. It definitely happens.
Hmm.
And it was very disheartening, but I was like, you know what? She doesn't deserve she doesn't deserve me to be there. So that's all it was. But it does happen where you can articulate, you can get a job, and just because of your black face, you will not be hired. It does happen.
Definitely. Definitely. It does exist. Um, we talked about leaders having people who exemplify that fervor that we're looking for in our communities, that would say, well, okay, this is really and truly wrong, whether it's political, whether it's religious. I've yet,
Yeah, well,
it might be out there.
you're saying leaders, but I think that this just show a lack of leadership on so many different angles. This shows
Exactly.
a massive lack in leadership.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
don't have.
It,
It's
it,
like we don't
it,
have. We don't have a president who understands this. To come out and verbalize exactly what's going on. And please, I see something that just came through the wire here. I don't know if it's an actual tweet that the president put out, or if somebody photoshopped it, but it looks like a pretty silly statement that was made. He said something to the essence that he spoke to the. I don't want to read it because I don't know if it's
Oh
real.
yeah,
So
I saw that.
The family of
I
George
saw
Floyd.
that. I thought
it
to
seems
myself, man,
comical.
this guy can't be that insipid.
Huh?
But truthfully, his whole presidency seems comical. So I would
Yes.
even go on that. So we're not looking at
No,
leadership on that level.
it doesn't seem like there is leadership from the church, from the churches. Well, the president, I'm not seeing that leadership in terms of articulating and one voice. Everybody's speaking, but we're hearing so much different voices. There's no articulation from one voice, so the community still doesn't have a unified voice. I don't know if you guys seen the same thing about the
I,
unified voice
I,
for the black people.
sorry, I've seen that for decades. People want comfort, even with COVID-19, even with racism, even with police brutality. They want it to be over so they could get back to their normal lives. Like, so these leaders, they want that money in the collection plate. They want church to be as
Church back.
usual. They don't, and this is not all churches where they're money hungry, but I'm just saying during the pandemic they made sure they got their tithes and their offerings. But when it's time to deal with things in the street and in the community, you're not going to really hear that leadership, man, because they're not really invested in that. They're definitely not invested in rebellion. And
Yeah, and I think
That's just
even what you said.
plain cowardice. That's just
yeah,
Yeah,
cowardice. Because
it's docile
because
Tim,
leadership.
you
yeah,
just said it earlier, and I think it made a lot of sense that a lot of the leadership or a lot of the people that are in this, they're not hardcore. Their heart and soul is not in it. They're not in it to say, "Well, I'll die for this cause."
For the people.
They're in it
they
because,
are they
know,
are cowards. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with being afraid. Everybody's afraid because even brave people are afraid. But the brave people are afraid, but they go anyway. The cowards are the people that let the fear stop them. And our leadership
Mhm.
nowadays, they are cowards. They don't want to lose what little cushy position they got. They don't want to lose what little advantages they got. So they will make a little bit of noise to keep us appeased, but not enough to counteract or to get the people who are taking care of them angry because they're cowards. Martin Luther
That's
King
true.
was no coward. Malcolm
But
X was no coward.
definitely
Langston
not.
Hughes, no coward.
Definitely not.
These guys were not cowards. They went out there and said, you know what? This is what I feel is right. And I know it may very well end with a bullet between my eyes. But
And they always said it.
Take a
They
stand.
always said it.
I will continue to do so. But our leaders
Malcolm
today,
X said repeatedly, he said, I will be killed for telling you this. Martin Luther King said, I won't make it with you. I might not get there with you. They knew what it was.
They understood the
But
risk.
what I see right now are the people that are in the protest and the people that are in the moment. They're there and they have this sticking out the selfie stick and they upload into YouTube just to be a part of the moment. And the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, they go back to the regular thing, right?
I got to be real with you though. I believe the youth though.
Yeah.
I believe the enthusiasm and the efforts of the young people. It's the older people who I have my doubts about. These young people. Wait, real quick. These young people are looking at their parents and grandparents, like you just said, like they're cowards, man. Like how long y'all gonna kumbaya and march and pray? Like you're praying for enemies and hoping that they change their racist patterns that they've exhibited for over 400 years. You're hoping, wishing, and praying that the enemy and the oppressor changes his ways so he could be nice to you.
And as you say, they've been breastfeeding on tainted milk, racism in it. So this is not going to necessarily change. We have to change our attitudes. Now, one of the things that I thought of, we talk about the moment. You're caught up in the moment, but then where's the movement? My concern is, where do we go? Okay, we're stopped. Where the protesting stops. Now, are there places that some of these young people who are looking for some kind of a organized way of dealing with this issue can go after we march? We got to the junction, we got to Barclay, we got to the bottom of Manhattan, and the march is over. Now, what do we do next?
But before we even get to that, I just have one parallel I want to make based on the cowardice of the thing. If you notice that in the Middle East, they will never break those people because they are not afraid to die for what they believe in. And they're like, you know what? This is what I believe in, and I wholeheartedly will give my life to do so. That is the reason why you will never, ever beat those people. And the difference is here is when it starts getting a little tough, people turn around like, whoa, this getting a little hot in here. They're ready to go. They're like, okay, I'll deal with the heat that I've been taking because I don't want to get any more hotter. But out there in the Middle East, they're like, as hot as it gets, I'm going to keep pushing forward with my agenda because I believe in fighting for what I believe is right.
Do y'all ever realize, to Ian's point, did you ever realize when black leaders come out, 30 years later, they get their just due? When Muhammad Ali was talking about Vietnam and all that, he was hated. When Malcolm X was talking about revolution, he was hated. Martin Luther King, they were hated in the 60s. And now it's revisionist history. Oh, like have love like Martin Luther King and be strong like Muhammad Ali. And they giving them awards posthumously and they're dead. Like these people were way before their time, man. And people didn't appreciate them in the moment. But now in retrospect, when you see what poor leadership we have now, you know, it's like, wow, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, we need those type of people. And we need those type of people.
Let me answer that question there, right, Veron? And I think, give me a minute. Let me just put this to the panel, right? Solution. We're talking about all of these things, right? We're talking about Malcolm X. We're talking about Martin Luther King. We're talking about all these past leaders, and we're here in the moment. But the question is, what are the solutions, right? Where do we go from here? I think Veron put a very good question together. Where do we go from here after this is said and done? Where do we go from here? And I have a quick concept that I think that we could start to look at. And I think TI is who mentioned it. It's about our black dollar. It's about our spending power. And I think we really need to understand that is our power. And also understand that black also have privilege. I was assured the other day, and he says black privilege. And somebody said black privilege. What are you talking about black privilege? What are the privilege? What privilege are you talking about? And I think that the privilege that we need to understand is that we are
We,
resilient people.
yes,
Every time they try to keep us down, we always
bounce back.
emerge.
Mm?
We bounce back and we come back strong. So that's our privilege. That we don't fall and just as black people and just give up. We've been fighting. We're fighters. We know we work hard. We fall down and we get up over again. So that's our black privilege. But the question is, for the panel, where do we go from here at this
I
point after March is said and done?
That's an amazing question. But it's twofold. Ti is correct. You're correct. The economics is true. At the same time, black men and black women are being slaughtered and systematically terminated by law enforcement agencies across the country. And that type of thing, that can't be dealt with money. That has to be dealt with in eye for an eye type justice. And I know this sounds crazy on this panel, but the only way to get the oppressor to stop oppressing you is to make him stop.
Yeah, I put it this way: we're resilient. Roaches are resilient, but you come with a big enough bomb, you kill them all. So resiliency in itself is a beautiful thing, but it's not enough. It really isn't enough. It has to be a multi-pronged attack, as an attack. You have to think of it in regards of a attack and as warfare. We have to control our economics, and we have to also stand up for ourselves.
Well,
And
essentially,
you have to defend yourself.
so essentially, what you're saying is fight fire with fire.
Put it this way: I
Yeah.
won't say fight fire
Even
with
our
fire, but
president
I will
said it.
say
He said
defend
sometimes
yourself.
some people have to die.
Defend yourself. I'll leave it at that. Defend yourself.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree. I've always told my children, don't start a fight, but finish it. Don't come home crying to me. Finish it. So
Defend
Yeah,
yourself.
essentially,
does that mean defend yourself? Yes, I understand that. But does that mean that we take to the streets within our neighborhoods and burn down the very institutions that that
That's not
that are
defense.
in our neighborhoods?
That's not defending
that's not the
yourself.
No, that's
defense
not
That's
mechanism we're
defense.
talking
rioting.
about. I'm assuming we're
That's
alluding to the Second
rioting.
Amendment, correct?
That's yeah. Well, that and amongst others, but that's just rioting, going and burning down your city. That's ridiculous. That makes no sense. You got to sit here and
Totally.
look at it and smell the ashes. That's terrible. That's stupid. But defend yourself when
Right. So what are we
when
saying?
you
What are we saying about that? What are we saying about that? Because that's a topic that I think that we need to also ventilate on. The topic of the rioting that's happening in our neighborhoods, the burning down of institutions and small businesses, which are the pillar of our black community. Small businesses and micro enterprises are the pillar of our community. Why are we seeing that, and what do we want to say to the people
You
that
know,
are being involved and getting themselves involved in things like that?
I can't I grew up comfortable, and I'm not. I've never apologized for it. I'm not rich by any means, but I grew up comfortable, and I've always said that comfortable people don't have the right to tell uncomfortable people how to react and how to respond to injustices. When you kill a man on video, and this has been so many videos. Eric Gardner, I can't breathe. This gentleman's calling out for his mother. Get off my neck. And the whole world and people are just videotaping it like it's a TV show, and it goes and it plays and it plays and it plays ad nauseum over and over again. It empowers white people to see black people dead, and it enrages black people. So however they react, I will never say that I condone burning down Target or AutoZone, whatever. I would never say it, but I would never say anything against somebody who did that. I can't, not under these circumstances. This is trauma. This is stress. This is anxiety. This is, I've had enough. This is post-traumatic stress disorder. This
hello.
is being downtrodden. This is living in hell your whole life. And this is the only language you
I
speak.
think it's displaced anger. Displaced anger.
Exactly.
My thing is this: if the guy 3 blocks over hit my car, I'm not going to burn the car on my block. I'm going to burn his car.
Hello.
I mean, it is what it is. That's just speaking very broadly and with a broad brush. So to say that somebody's upset and they're wrong for setting something on fire, I think they set the wrong things on fire, actually. Because, as Tim said, comfortable people will not change. And as long as society is comfortable, as long as the people in power are comfortable, it will never change. We have to make them uncomfortable. Now, as
Exactly.
Junior said, economically is one great way to make people uncomfortable. But then
Hmm.
also have the same way when my son goes outside and I'm afraid for him to come home some days because he may be mistaken as some suspect and shot and killed by an officer. They gotta feel the same pain and the same fears and the same apprehension we feel in order for them to change.
Yep.
Because as long as they're comfortable, they ain't gonna change.
And I don't
Exactly.
mean
Yeah.
and I don't mean random law enforcement officials who
Of
didn't
course
do
not.
anything. I'm talking about that guy who did it. Like the neck kneelers and those people, the same way our addresses get put out there in the open, that's the same. And I'm being real with it. We need to march, but down to people's houses and let them know how we feel.
They gotta be made to feel uncomfortable. Because as long as they're comfortable behind the ivory tower or behind wherever they're standing behind, they're gonna sit back like, hey, look at these guys out there. They can't get here. But when they get there, they're like, whoa, now I'm beginning to feel uncomfortable. Maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, but
But
I
as
do.
long
Go ahead. But I
as
do feel that, to me, if they're all there ought to be some sort of checks and balances where even other cops who are quote unquote good cops don't let bad cops. They shouldn't let bad cops get away with the crap that they do. Now, if you're standing there and instead of actually trying to maybe intervene and see to it that this doesn't get overboard, then you're just as complicit. To me, you're just as guilty.
Absolutely.
I know several cops. I have a lot of law enforcement in my family, and they'll
Hmm.
they'll be the first one to tell you I bark on them all the time. I'm like, listen, getting on YouTube and all this other stuff saying, it was wrong as a law enforcement guy. I think it was bad, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. That's all just song and dance. How many times have you gone down to IAB and pointed out one of your dirty cold colleagues? How many
Hello.
times have you testified to the DA about one of your dirty colleagues? How many times have you went up to this dirty colleague and said, hey, what you're doing is wrong, and I'm going to stop you? If you haven't done any of that, sit down. Don't tell me this kumbaya stuff. I'm with you. No, you are not with me. Actually, it's like you can't lock somebody up for a bad thought. You can lock them up for bad actions. So I
Hello.
can't applaud nobody for a good thought. I'll applaud you for some good action. That's
Show me
just
what you're
me.
Yeah.
working with. Hmm.
Exactly.
It's true. And I want to talk a little bit about this thing quickly, Veron. The protect and serve. And it's crazy because you guys hit the nail right on the head. I did a little
Yep.
vlog earlier this week, and it had to do with the same topic: protect and serve. The question is, who are they protecting and who are they serving?
Hello.
Right? They are protecting. Ultimately, they are protecting the other
Each
rogue
other.
cops in there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Come on. This guy had 19
Prior complaints.
prior complaints, which means that his colleagues in the police precinct has been protecting him over this period of time.
And
And
complicit.
not only his colleagues, it's obviously his superiors have been protecting him as well. They know of it. I'm sure that the mayor probably know of it as well. But what they did, they kicked the can down the road. Could you imagine if they had stopped this guy after the first or second complaint
Hello.
and said, you know what? This is
You're rogue.
this is not the behavior of a police officer. This should not be condoned in the police precinct, and got rid of him. They would have never been a George Floyd today. The fact of the
Exactly.
matter is, every rogue or every police officer that stood by and watched as this guy did 19 other additional rogue behaviors throughout his tenure as a police officer are equally liable to what happened here in this situation. The police officer that stood by and protected him He just stood there and he protected anybody from even going close to him. Why the guy murdered the guy
Exactly.
on his neck? He protected him. How are they protecting and who are actually serving?
I have some amazing friends in law enforcement. Like, and I know for a fact that they would stop and they wouldn't participate. With that being said, I couldn't help but laugh my whole life when you see CPR on the NYPD. Courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Because the populace, especially the black populace, we don't see that much from them. Whether it be a routine, it's never a routine stop. Nothing is the stop and frisk. Black boys, and this is the first in our generation. Our parents didn't believe us. Oh, if you weren't in the street, that wouldn't have happened. The police wouldn't just do that to you. And it wasn't until they started seeing Amadou Diallo and Sean Bell and they seen all these things at the hand. Then they're like, wow, like my son was telling the truth. So when you say serve and protect, traditionally black people, especially black young men in the inner cities, whether you're dressed up or whether you're in camouflage or whether you're in a sweatsuit, whether you're jogging, no matter what you do, you're always seen as a threat. Stepping on an elevator, anything you do, you're seen as a threat. So when you say protecting, sir, that we've never felt. I've never felt that way. I would say that with
it's hysterical. Honestly. because the funny thing is, now let's just look at this from a professional standpoint. If you work for a job and you consistently cost your job hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits and libel suits, there's no way you will keep your job. There was a video that went out for one guy. He was arrested and beaten on one kid for social distancing. It was a couple of weeks ago. And that same officer, because they put up online, that same officer cost the city of New York about $700,000 in settlements. Settlements.
But then
that's the ones they couldn't fight. They said, okay, we're gonna pay. How many people can cost their job $750,000
and still be employed? Exactly. And then you're also looking at the fact that he was so comfortable in doing that his hands was in his pocket.
Yeah.
How comfortable can you
but that hand in the pocket gesture, I know this for a fact. I do security as well.
I know I'm not gonna be held accountable.
No, it's not that. It's also when you put your hand in your pocket, that puts all of your force down on that person's neck. Like that's a technique that they use where people from the outside can't see it because it looks so innocuous, but his full weight was on that man's neck. So these are
somebody actually made mention of that. A jiu-jitsu guy made mention of that. He said if you watch his right foot is moving, which means that all of his weight is on his left foot, which is on the guy's neck.
Guys, we're going to take a station break right now, and we'll be back in a moment to continue the discussion. We're just going to take a top of the hour break. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in. Guys, you're here with us. We're playing talk right now with Veron Richards, and we have our panelists, Junior George, our own Junior George. We have Ms. Donna Black and Timothy Marshall with Ian McDonald discussing race relations right now, and essentially what our climate is like right now based on George Floyd's death and the protests that we're experiencing throughout the varying cities, but more so trying to come up with some resolve. We've got to do better. We've got to fare better in this system because it's if it continues, riot is the least of our problems. It surely is. Sure. And I know we talked about and one of the things I do feel, especially even with COVID-19, it brought to light a whole host of not just white on black racism, but racism from other sectors. And the power, as Junior mentioned, of our dollars. I've been in my neighborhood and I see everyone else could come in and set up business and we support them like crazy and their pockets are fat. We have black owned businesses that they're here and they're here. When you feel like it, you go in and you don't tend to think purposefully, I need to buy black. I need to get into these stores and make sure that they're here tomorrow, next week, next year. And some of these businesses, I'm not going to call any names, you couldn't go into their neighborhoods and set up a black business and get support. And they can treat you like dirt when you're patronizing their businesses, yet still we go in them. I really think we need to be mindful of where our dollars are spent. What's your take on it?
That's a very good point. I always make the joke, and it's really not funny, that black people are the only people who line up to pay for disrespect. Whether it be Gucci, whether it be all of these brands who routinely disrespect us and say they don't want us wearing their products, and we still, those are the things that we buy. Like we line up for disrespect. So you're very right when you say it's definitely something within the black community where we want to look a certain way. We want to look European. We want to wear certain things as a status symbol. But at the same time, our integrity goes down the drain because we would rather have that and no integrity. And that's something that needs to be taught at home. How to appreciate yourself, your beautiful self.
Exactly. Exactly. And part of it too is media. As you said, we don't really control any media outlets. Thank God for Ride Along and panels like this or platforms like this where we can actually sit and speak about issues. But mainstream America, CNNs, the ABCs, the NBCs, the Fox, they won't give you the truth. They'll give you facts. They won't necessarily give you the truth. And some of us are not seekers of the truth. So we take something and we run with it, or we get an impression of what it should be and we run with it. So here it is that we have this distorted view about how important we are. And it's totally messing up with the minds of not only us as adults, but what we teach our children. So their value is not placed in loving themselves, but loving, be blonde, be something that you aren't naturally, because naturally to be you is not beautiful. You have to aspire to be something different. And when you get there, get all the wrappings and the injections and all that stuff when they're trying to actually do it and look like you. Listen,
I love it. Isn't that the beautiful irony of it all? Like we're bleaching our skin to look white and they're laying in the sun to look black. Like it's just funny.
Isn't it ironic?
It's irony. It's definitely irony. But you're 100% right. That economic thing that Junior touched on, we have to want to spend our dollars in our community. We have to see the importance of that as well. And we have to, again, acknowledge the beauty of who we are. And I think that's lost a lot of times. Like we're taught that, darker girls are not beautiful, and he look African, and they're laughing at Africa, and Africa is so more developed. I know African people who speak 7 languages, like, and we're laughing at Africa as like a third world continent, an undeveloped place, and I'm like, wow, in America we have no clue how great our ancestry is.
Purposely so. I mean, it's purposely so. Purposely so, but it's sad because Tim touched on something that's very important. We really don't have, and that's when I say we, I mean collectively as in black people, we don't have a high self-concept. They did studies with children, and even children the age of 4 or 5, they looked at the black doll as less beautiful than the white doll. The black doll is the bad doll. The white doll is the good doll. That all comes from indoctrination from way, way before you can even really, what's even tangible. This is like what they see in the crib, what they see in television at 2 and 3 years old. And we don't value ourselves. So of course, we're not going to value the black business as much as we value the white business.
Exactly.
We're not going to support them because like the Jews will spend 20% more to shop with their own.
Hello.
Than they will somewhere else. But when we go shopping, when I say we, I mean we collectively as black people. When we go to that black store, I want a deal. I want a discount.
You're right.
How many times have you tried to sell something to a friend of yours and they want a discount? Or how many times, we don't respect each other.
Yeah.
We don't respect each other's dollars. We don't respect each other's time. We don't respect each other's reason for being. And we gotta work on that too.
Well, could we kind of pointed towards the fact that, generally speaking, we are so disenfranchised on some level that we don't necessarily feel that we have the power of the dollar. We're so concerned with taking care of everything else. So we think, well, they could afford it and they'll walk in there and pay the whole price. We're looking for the deal. We're going to Macy's, and unless it's on the clearance rack, we don't buy it or whatever. So we're that deal. But I think more so it goes into that materialistic mindset. We're not thinking about investments. We're not thinking about home ownership. We're not thinking about, it's always, well, let me get a deal on this shoes or whatever the case might be, something that'll turn up and you throw it or give it away to somebody else in a couple of months. But you're not thinking of long term, which is like, as you said, investing in businesses.
The fact about it is, a lot of the times when the same people go to a Macy's or Nordstrom or any one of those other businesses, they're not even asking. They dare not ask for a discount. They know they're not.
Exactly.
They pay the price. So you call another small black business who is making moves and trying to get up there, you're always looking for discount, right? And that's another big factor. We don't like to see and hear from our own. Let somebody else come and say, well, you know what? I'm going to provide you with this service. I'll provide you with this service. We quick it's within our DNA to believe people that come into our community, but we think everybody within our community are scammers or liars, and we just cannot provide good services. But they're not going to do this when they go to these other businesses.
My father used to say,
we can't expect somebody else to see value in us until we see value in ourselves.
Exactly.
But my father used to always say that your friends won't celebrate you until strangers elevate you.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot in the black community.
My battery's dying. I'm gonna have to jump to another apparatus because my battery's dying.
That's all right. You can join us. You can join us when you jump. Come back in.
I'll back in a few minutes.
No
but
problem.
Veron, I wanted to say to you, this is an amazing forum, and I thank you for being so bold to broach this topic, because it's a very uncomfortable, multifaceted, multi-layered topic. And
sure is.
Just to switch gears a little bit, the one good thing that I took out of being quarantined and COVID-19 and coronavirus was that it stripped us down to the bare minimum. We couldn't get haircuts. We couldn't get our nails done. We were just regular. Like it didn't matter the clothes you had in your closet. It didn't matter what car you're driving. Nothing mattered. Just who you were mattered. And that's one good thing. I hope that a lot of people could realize that they don't always have to be dolled up. Let your true, beautiful self shine through. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I also, a lesson for me during this time is that I'll encourage people. Some people don't even know what their real hair look like. They don't know what their real selves look like. As you said, you're stripped down to bare bones, but take that time, because many a times, because you're so wigged out and you're so whatever, you're not taking care of the bare bones. So now that you don't have to go out and show those toes, and you don't have to go out and show the hair, take time to groom. Develop it to the point where you can actually use your own hair when you get out there in public, because you have that time at home. COVID-19 has, if nothing else, it's afforded you that right. Get in touch with yourself. Find value in yourself. And even when we were talking about the businesses and trying to support our own, and sometimes, as you said, the Jewish man would probably spend 20% more, 20 cents more to support his own. And we have some black businesses, we don't understand some of the things that they go through to get some of the quality stuff that they try to get here to us. I know of one person in particular. I don't know if I should name the name because I didn't get clearance to speak on the incident, but it's a Caribbean produce market type store. And my dad came to visit, and we've been friends since I was a teenager. And he confided in us that he had the shipment that came from the islands, and it was these cans of salami. And when it got to clearance, militia, like a pick, nice ice pick, and just punctured every one of those cans. They're about $13 a pop in the stores. You're talking about how much loss this man had in terms of this under the pretense of possible drug smuggling. So they go through a lot, and their loss is probably greater than the average Joe out there who's trying to do the same thing. So many a times, yeah, pay that. If he does not have to go through the waste or whatever the case might be in terms of I'm bringing in all of this, but I don't know if I'm going to sell all of this. And then eventually I'll have to bring down my prices because it becomes not day old, but stale stuff. So I can't sell it at the premium price. But maybe if we're supporting them, he knows that, well, listen, I have a steady market. These people are coming. And so I know when I order this much, it will get sold. And so a price per capita would be different. So we have to show that we support them in order for them to be able to probably give us better prices. But we can't do it if we're wishy-washy with it.
But in fairness to Black consumers as well, I do frequent a lot of African American, Caribbean restaurants and things, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say about Black people. We have to be nice too in these places as well. There's a lot of times we're disrespectful to our own community when we order, and there's a lot of Caribbean comedians who make jokes about it, like they're scared to order, like because the person might yell at them or you're not ready, next person. So. You know, we have to treat each other nicely in both regards. But I know this is definitely about the police.
And
I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that energy.
Donna, are you back? Are you back? Are you able to hear?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, all right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you, Donna.
We could hear you. I think I want to say one last thing as well on the support, because I think we need to. I don't want to stray the whole conversation away from the main topic at hand, which is the topic of George Floyd and the protests that follow. But what I would like to see is that we as a people, we as Black people, learn how to work together as community. Because other communities know how to do it very well. There are communities that, they come from the islands or wherever they are, and they come into the United States and they have a plan. They say, we're going to buy houses and we're going to invest. We have a long-term goal. And 5-6 of them stay in one room or one apartment for X amount of time. And then one person move out and they buy a house, and the next person move out and they buy a house, and the next person move out and they buy a house. And all of a sudden, after a couple of years, they own a whole block. It seems like we as Caribbean, we as Black people, not Caribbean, but Black people in general, we don't have that long-term projection, and we don't know how to come together. It could be a result of slavery, but I want to see if we could look at a long-term goal and also invest in each other and our own and setting a landscape. One last thing I want to say, and then I'll bounce back to you, Veron. I had a pastor on the program one time, and one of the very important things that he left with us when he was talking is that we need to leave this program right now and go out and buy a $1 million policy on our life.
Okay.
And if 100 people do that within the community, after we've transitioned, we would have lived 100 millionaires. Monies that would go to our kids, that they wouldn't have to start up where we started. They would have a jump start in life.
That's it.
Right? a lot of other communities teach their children about this. You know, they don't just leave them. They don't just they leave them with something so they could start their life and they could go forward. And 100 millionaires in our community. Think about the next 10 years. Think about the next 15 years. Think about the next 40 years. What it would
building
look
block of generational wealth. Exactly. Very good point.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good
as
point.
Ian, yeah, as
Yeah.
Ian mentioned before, a lot of us, we like to see instant gratification. We want it now. We want to see results now. But we have to, as you said, have the big picture outlook, because many of the things that we're going through right now probably wouldn't change within our lifetime. But we definitely want to make sure that within our children or children's children lifetime, that change would come where it gives them that equal playing ground. So I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I think what it is that we need to have more forums like this and other places where people can comfortably go and express themselves and express the desire to be more productive in our community. I think we've lacked a lot of that, even in terms of leadership. Some of the churches can take a pivotal role in that. Okay, you can't come out and speak about police brutality and yada, yada, yada. But why not have some of these groups where some of these young men who are not members of your church, they can actually come in and feel comfortable enough to be a part of something that is great, and not necessarily for them now, but they can see a future. They can see, well, it's not as bad as we're painted out to be. We're okay and we can do better. But I don't feel that our children, or, you know, unless you have parents that get them to us, that our children have that network available to them on a whole, generally speaking.
Very good points.
Yeah,
All good
yeah,
points.
and I think generational wealth is something that we as a people need to harness, learn how to, and you know, look at the big picture, look at down the road, look at years, invest in our retirement, and invest in our kids, the generation after us. Invest in our community. I'm big on community. I'm big on putting things, building a solid foundation within your community. I believe in strength in numbers. All of these things, and I see such a lack of it in our community, and it angers me because when I see one black brother fighting on another black brother for like something as miniature as a grain of salt, when I know that if I could take my grain of salt and your grain of salt, we put that together with 5 other grain of salt, we could make a bigger grain and we have a bigger impact. You know what I mean? We could do more. But instead, 5 of us fighting for 1 grain of salt that eventually will have to split, and then like we don't have nothing at the end of the day.
No flavor.
Right? And I see it every single time. We just have an inability to work together, and that is what is one of the things that is really hindering us as a community to go forward.
I agree. I
Here's-
totally
here's a-
agree.
Here's a point where some people miss. Okay, a lot of people make great points on different things to do, but here's what it is. When you are fighting a war, this is a war, there are different fronts for different soldiers to fight on. Some people will be better suited for the economic portion. Some people will be better suited for the portion. Some people will be better suited for the physical portion. And let's just be frank, some people will be better for the fighting portion. But everybody's going to have to play their part and understand that there is not just one prong attack that is going to change this.
Exactly.
We have to fight this on all levels, on all fronts simultaneously. And
I
people
agree.
they have to understand where they fit in and what part of the fight that they are, and understand that it's not for them per se, but it's for our future. The benefit of this.
Exactly.
And very good point, Ian. Veron, I want to also say to your viewers and listeners that it starts with the children as well. And as Black people, we have to put our children in martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, jujitsu, and even eventually teaching them how to use weapons, because and we're the only race. We don't protect ourselves.
No.
We don't. The street people do, but we do not know how to protect ourselves for the most part. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. That a lot of the Korean, Chinese, Japanese, their children take martial arts and study with chucks and things of that nature, learn how to use different weapons, and that's been lost in our community for the most part.
I
Yeah,
go to
definitely.
the gun range and I see
Exactly.
8-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
and 7-year-olds. Not only they're shooting, but there was this girl had to be about 7 or 8. She had a jersey on because she was sponsored. You get what I'm saying? She had sponsors where they're teaching her how to utilize weapons. So this is something that other communities are doing that we're not doing. We're not teaching ourselves to defend ourselves. Again, jiu-jitsu, boxing, just situational awareness. You got to be aware of these things because again, this is a war. This is combat that we're dealing with. This
You're
is
correct.
not just rhetoric anymore.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct.
These are physical assaults that are taking place.
Of
You got to defend
course.
yourself.
Yeah, and hence the reason why I said even if whatever our decision, wherever it is that you want to fit into the war, it still has to be organized.
Yeah,
Now, if
most
you're going out to war, there's basic training, there's all the other trainings that you do before you're put out there. My thing is, what are the resources that our community is affording us to get together collectively to be trained for this war? Okay, you have the people who are going to be letting you know about your financial empowerment. You have your political leaders who are going to be standing behind you in spite of the modern day Malcolm X's or whatever the case might be. I'm for you, I'm for my people, and this is it, come hell or high water. Then you have the people who are willing to take up the guns and do what they have to do in terms of protecting our community. But we still have to do it in a organized manner. And I'm
Totally
looking
agree.
for the organizational aspect of it.
You know what? Before we talk about the organizational aspect of it, I just want to say that, I am tired and frustrated about this right here. I'm tired and frustrated about we will sit and we will create and we'll talk about plans. We come to the media and we talk about things that which everybody could do, and then 2 weeks after that, everybody just fall apart. Like people not focused. Nobody want to put in hardcore blood for it. It seems like we are so overreactive as a community. As soon as something happened, we jump on the bandwagon and we get so frustrated. I remember there was a killing. There was a young man that killed a young lady in my island, and I remember watching that broadcast on the day off as he was coming out from the magistrate court. People lined the magistrate court, and there was taunting and there was angry and there was protesting in front of the magistrate court. Ask these people right now about about this particular case. What did they know? Do they even know where this guy is in terms of the process of the law? No, because time passed and people just forget. So we sit and we talk and we talk and we sit and we try to put together, but it just seems more so we're talking out in thin air. 2.5 weeks and it's done.
But don't say we though, because
Okay.
I do
Yeah.
agree with you a lot, and hence the reason I don't even talk a lot. I talk to people like Ian and people like Donna, like-minded individuals who we are active. We are very active. So I do know what you're saying to be very true. For 2 weeks we have intense rage, fire rage, anger,
Fresh.
retaliation. We're revolutionaries for 2 weeks, and then the playoffs start, or carnival starts, or a new movie comes out, and then we lose that fervor. But everybody's not like that. Trust and believe me when I tell
Yeah,
you.
not everybody is like that. No.
Yeah, no, I agree. Everybody is don't have the same intensity as well. So it's not everybody. A lot of us sit on the grind and we say, "Boy, we have to put this thing in motion. Remember, we have to fight for this cause. Remember, we have to put our resources together." And far too many people don't adhere to that pledge. At the
Junior,
It's
end,
a fact.
But see,
unfortunately, we're not
go ahead.
all soldiers.
get it out there.
Unfortunately, we're not all soldiers. We're not all disciplined, and that is a sad state of affairs. That people can lose track of what is to their own detriment. And you are 100% correct. I see it all the time. Everybody's gung ho, but 2 weeks later, the new Jordans come out, and it's all a whole new focus. But yeah, not everybody's a soldier, but there are we do have some soldiers. We do have some people who are stay focused and who are always on their mind. They may not speak about it all the time, but it is always on their mind. And and you're right. There has to be some good. We all right. We have we have the foot soldiers. They're just they're just not
Support.
governed in the right direction. But
Yeah.
we have them. They are there. We have the people who are willing to put in the work. They are just unfocused. And once we get them focused, then they will be afraid because we literally do have an army. We have a black army. It's just we too busy fighting each other. We too busy. We too busy. We too busy going crazy over colors and turf that don't even belong to us.
Understood. And hence the reason why I'm speaking of the organizational aspect of it. People need to know, where do I go to support that? Because I may not want to be a soldier, but I definitely want to support my soldier. Where do I go? Guys, we're going to take a station break and we'll be back to continue our talk on race relations in America in light of the George Floyd incident and the protest that's going on around here. You're tuned in with Plain Talk with Lady V and my panelists. We'll be back shortly.
Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count.
Thank you, guys. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us at Plain Talk with Veron Richards and my panelists. I have Junior George. I do have Timothy Marshall. We have Ms. Donna Black, just disappeared for a minute, and we also have Mr. Ian McDonald. We're discussing race relations here, and as I stated when I started this program today, I'm just tired. I am tired of the same old, same old. Somebody dies, somebody gets killed. We march, we vote, we sing, we pray, we vote, and nothing changes. And we have to take a different approach. I don't know what that approach is, but we got to look at some different approaches because what we've done in the past, unfortunately, it hasn't worked for us. So we need to start looking at different options. Maybe it's a combined effort. As I said, we talked about our financial power. We're talking about other aspects of maybe defense, but we've definitely got to do things differently because only a fool does the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So my panelists, I do have Tim. I know you're chomping at the bit to come in. So I'd like to hear your take on it because we talked about defense. I mean, we kind of skated over it a little bit, but we talked about defense. And I've always had that mindset that owning a gun is bringing more violence into your home. Listen, maybe I'm brainwashed to think that way,
You are.
but
You are.
I know I'll admit it. Um, but my thing is, if it's to the point where I have to protect my home, I don't mind going to the gun range. I don't mind owning a gun as long as I know how to properly acquire it because I don't want to go to jail for owning a
I
gun,
get you.
Right.
right?
See now,
But I
right.
need to know
Gun with gun.
some of
Well,
the
I'm
barriers
gonna
or
def-
some of
I-
the
I'm
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna defer to Ian, but before I do,
Right.
you would, if you have a flashlight in your house or a hammer or a screwdriver, they're all tools.
Oh, they are,
Um,
but it doesn't project. It's not a projectile. I need something that can keep me away
but,
from the enemy,
no,
but
no, but
still
it's a tool
on.
that you use when you need it.
Oh, definitely.
So
Oh,
that's
definitely.
the only parallel that I'm making. It's a tool. So Ian, you go ahead, brother. You speak on this.
Okay, Ian.
And when it comes to firearms, first and foremost, the first thing I always stress is be lawful with it. Know the laws of your community, know the laws of your state, know the laws of your city, knows what you can obtain and what you cannot attain. Know the rights that you have to have it and what you cannot have. And also follow all instructions, follow all laws, make sure everything is above board. The Second Amendment right is a very powerful right, but again, it's a right that comes with responsibility. I'm
Absolutely.
very responsible with my firearms. My firearms are all locked up. Anybody in my home has proper training in how to deal with a firearm when you come across it, because the safety aspect of it is paramount. But I've been taught how to properly handle firearms, and I speak and I try to preach safe firearm ownership, legal firearm ownership, responsible firearm ownership. Do I believe in background checks? Yes. There are plenty of people out there. I do not want to have firearms. So, yes, background checks are important. Training is important. Practice with your firearm. Know your firearm. Know how your firearm is going to handle. Know how to fix problems with your firearm. All that is encompassed in legal and competent firearm ownership. Going to the corner guy and buying a cyanide special does not make you a good firearm owner. But going to a
Hmm.
store, talking with individuals, picking the proper firearm for you, getting the proper training, getting the proper permits, that is legal, responsible firearm ownership.
Well, my concern is okay, we can definitely acquire firearm in the under the auspices of self-defense.
Yes.
Would that make us more of a target, however, in the event that we have to encounter police brutality? Because here it is now, they're thinking, okay, well, now they're armed. So we won't get that close to knee them in the neck. We'll just shoot because it looked like well, they've been shooting. Everything looked like a firearm to them. So now that it's something that they understand that we may be being too overt in terms of what our plans are. But now that we have, or they might suspect that we have a firearm, we're now targeted in a different way, and they use a different mechanism now to have us killed.
Well, then, okay, that you make a very valid point. But I can get real brass tacks about that and say I'd rather have it and not need it than need not have it. In regards to dealing with the police, there is a manner in which you deal with the police with your firearm. Have I been pulled over in my automobile with my firearm? Sure, I have. And there is a manner in which you address this.
Hmm.
And 99.9% of the time you go about it that way, the cop is actually glad that you went about it that way, because he
Hmm.
knows that if you, like, when I get pulled over, I provide him my carry permit as well as my driver's license. So actually in my honor, I will say yes, I am. If I'm in a state that recognizes my carry permit, I will be armed, and I will tell him yes, I'm armed. He's like, and 99% of the time they say you don't go for yours, I don't go for mine. Cool, no problem. And then they know that if you provide them with the documentation
Your
that
intent,
you're a legal person with a firearm. You're
right?
not somebody running around where it's a problem. But but to say that we shouldn't arm ourselves because we're afraid that the tactics will change to kill us, the tactics will change to kill us regardless.
True,
Because as soon as we adapt to it, it's going to change again.
true.
So at least in this aspect, it may being armed may not stop you from police brutality, but it'll damn sure stop that crazy white guy from thinking he could just run over on you. because he's like, hey, he might be armed like me. The guy, remember in Kroger, the guy that went around and shot the old black woman and the old black man. He came out in the parking lot and started shooting at a black guy in the car that just pulled up. That black dude returned fire, and he packed up and left. Because if that young black guy that pulled up in that car wouldn't return fire at him, it would have been more than 2 black people dead in that Kroger's.
Understood. But see, my concern right now is not so much the white on black or black on gun exchange. My concern is police who are charged with serving and protecting, and for NYPD at least, to treat us with courtesy, professionalism, and respect, and having to deal with that. I don't see it being an equal playing field for blacks when it comes to NYPD. So right now, my focus is on dealing with police brutality or intervention when it comes to dealing with our young men just us, period, in general, as a race, when it comes to suspected or purported criminal activities.
When it comes to black men of color, there's 2 things that I always realize, especially with our women and the older women in our community as well. A lot of us have Stockholm syndrome, and we also have cognitive dissonance. Stockholm syndrome is we always make excuses for our kidnappers or the people who are oppressing us.
Mm-hmm.
And then cognitive dissonance is like we can be told something and show the facts of it, and we still won't believe it because we're so conditioned. Now, black people, we're conditioned. We speak out against firearms because, they kill people, or innocent people might get killed. But at the same time, you are arming yourself. You're learning how to defend yourself. And even with the self-defense tactics, where's the problem with you defending yourself? It's not an offensive thing. It's a defensive thing. So knowing how to fight, knowing tactical maneuvers, knowing how to use a firearm, knowing how to see danger, knowing how to protect your perimeter, all of these things are important things that other people are learning. But all we're doing is praying and marching and hoping that oppressor stops oppressing me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not until you take
Oh, I think we lost him.
think we lost him.
Yeah.
But he'll be back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree in terms of, we've got to do things differently, only because at the end of the day, everything that we've done and what we're doing is what we've done before, and it's not working, unfortunately. So I am definitely all for protecting me and mine's and ours, because essentially we can't think of this as just I'm protecting my family. I got to protect my community. And you got to be willing, as you say, to fight. You got to be willing to step on the forefront wherever you fit in. You got to be willing to make that commitment. And for me anyway, I would love to know that there are places where I can go and get an organized, where I'm not looked at like some rogue and I'm just trying to, but we can go and organize a mission, whatever it is, to protect our community.
Yeah, unfortunately, New York City is one of those cities where firearms are like few and far between legally. But the truth of the matter is, in New York City, you can legally own a shotgun. You can. You just can't own a handgun, but you legally can own a shotgun to keep in your home and protect your home. Now, again, I stress firearms. Is firearms the only way? Of course not. Firearms, firearms is literally the last line of defense. Mm-hmm. Only a sociopath wants to shoot somebody, but I will be prepared to do so if need be. But only a sociopath wants to shoot somebody. But again, that's just only one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is situational awareness. Be cognizant of what's going on around you. See that, okay, the problem is over there. Let me go over here. Mm-hmm. That's part of it also. And then also, how to get out of the situation. Let's say somebody grabs you from behind. How do you get out of that? Somebody grabs you by your wrist. How do you get out of that? We need to teach those
Definitely.
things also. Firearms
Self-defense.
is the very last line of defense. But
Of course.
way up until you get to that point, there's so many different other avenues of self-defense and avoiding the issue altogether. If you see the problem across the street, don't go. Why do you
Exactly.
gotta go?
Exactly.
No need to go there.
And not only that, I
And
think,
we need to be better at that.
yeah. And part of the issue is, as I said, I had the conversation with my son in that you're thinking at this point, my 8-year-old grandson, you're preparing him mentally for in the event that you, and the likelihood is that you probably will get pulled over and you probably will encounter some sort of interaction with a law, how you respond. And that's where
Yep.
we even have to be so much more responsible, not so much for ourselves, because we kind of have an idea of what we need to do or how we need to do it in order to live, to tell the story or tell the story about the encounter. But we also have to be responsible or mindful of teaching our youths how you know, because everyone, we all have our egos, and you just, now I got a gun, what you got? And we're here at a
But you,
gunfight. So to
Yeah.
protect
but
them,
you,
you have to
Yeah.
teach them
I had
now
to
to
explain to my white
almost
I had to
stand down.
explain to my white counterparts at work. I had to explain to my white colleagues at work. I said, now when your son goes out, you're concerned with him having a car accident or something like that. When my sons go out, I'm concerned with them encountering some rogue element of law enforcement. I said, I have
Mhm.
to teach my son different things than you have to teach your son. I have to teach my son how to deal with this issue when you don't have to teach your children how to deal with this issue. I have to
Mhm.
teach my children how to deal with a society that deems him less than. But
Exactly.
you don't have to teach your son that. So anybody and my white colleagues, I tell them straight out,
Rightfully
listen,
so.
the way you raise your children, the way you raise your sons is different than how I had to raise mine. Because I have a whole different set of circumstances that I have to prepare my children for that you do not have to prepare your children for.
Mhm. I agree.
and
Totally agree.
and to piggyback on what Ian is saying, to be a black man is so difficult, man.
Hmm.
You're talking about society not liking you, law enforcement not liking you. Um, Sometimes your own women don't like you. Sometimes black men don't like you. Um,
Yeah,
Asians don't like you. Like people come to this country and in their mind they're saying, I'm better than, I maybe not be better than everybody else, but I'm better than that black
Right.
guy. That is the stigma. And it's like I compare it to Atlas holding up the whole planet Earth. That's how it feels being a black man. And to be the thing is too, I grew up, I'm an educated black man. And you still, you're not off the hook because you got a degree or whatever. You're still not off the hook because you still look
Mhm.
like everybody else. So there's nothing that we can do as far as changing the mindset of a rogue cop or a corrupt law enforcement official. There's nothing that we can do that's going to change their mind how they feel about black people.
except learn how to navigate the situation. That's it.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
Because
We learn how to navigate
because
the situation.
I grew up with parents. My parents are nice, law-abiding Christian individuals, and I grew up with. I swear to you, I grew up with turn the other cheek, pray for them who spitefully use you,
And
and
abuse you.
say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake, and take the higher road and be the bigger person. And I realized that growing up in Brooklyn, New York, in the
That,
70s, 80s, and 90s,
that
that
was the approach.
if you're a target and you allow it to continue, it will not stop until you stand up for
You
yourself.
turn the other cheek, you get smacked in that one.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, yeah.
my mindset on that changed very rapidly. So everyone who knows me, they say he's good, but he's hood. Like I want to be good. I want to be good, but I'm prepared to do the other thing.
Gotta
And
be hood.
you got to if you want to
Mhm.
survive, man. Because
Mhm.
it's survival of the fittest. It's a war going on out here.
Yeah, like people really don't understand how difficult it is as a black man to try to straddle both worlds,
Yeah.
where you're in the corporate arena and you have to conduct yourself accordingly. I'm in the boardroom. I'm having discussion with people over a $2 billion project, but at the same time, I have to leave, and then I have to go out here and walk around the neighborhood and be able to still hold my
Navigate.
head up and not be pushed around out there. So
Hmm.
I got to live in two different worlds, which are very, very dichotomous. They're very different than one another.
Hmm.
It's a
But you have to
dichotomy
do that as a black man to
to survive.
be successful.
Yeah.
And it's difficult. Like Tim said, it's sometimes it's like Atlas holding up the world, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not as educated as Tim, but I like to think I'm intelligent, and I'm successful. I think I'm very successful in what I do
In
for a
your own
living.
right.
I make a very good wage at it, and I have to live in both worlds because I have to live. I have to work with people who I know for a fact look down on me just purely for the color of my skin. I go
Exactly.
into these boardroom meetings and I say something. They look at me like, "What the hell is he talking for?" But then when I
Hmm.
give them the facts and I back
Hmm.
everything up, after a few months, it's like, "Well, Mr. McDonald, what do you have to say?" "Oh, now you're listening. Okay, great.
Oh,
All right, now I'm
under,
good. I'm not just a black guy anymore. Great." But
exactly.
we have to live in two separate worlds,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's very stressing. It's
It
very
is.
difficult. I'm 49 and I got gray hair, and I've had gray hair for 20 plus years.
You know that thing is genetic. Stop that. It's genetic. But Donna, we haven't heard from you in a minute, and I know you're out there in Cali, and
Yeah.
the same struggles that we have here in New York City and in Minnesota. I know you guys have it. I'd like to hear from you regarding this.
Well, I've lived in a couple of different states. I was raised in New York. I've lived in Florida. Now I live in California. And I've traveled throughout the United States. I've gone to places where I've shown up and I'm the only black person there. And to piggyback on something that both Ian and Timothy addressed is that we do have to leave, especially when you're
What's up,
educating,
Kelly?
you
Good
have
to
to
see you, brother.
lead two lives. And the first part of our formal education is learning how to navigate the world that we live in, learning how to deal with people and understand what they may be thinking of you so you know how to address it ahead of time. It's like we live a life of, it's a constant chess game for us where we're moving across the board and we're strategically placing ourselves because we know that what they're thinking, what their expectation is. And I'm always the person, I like the difficult conversations. I like to make people a little uncomfortable,
Hmm.
and I like to shock and awe. And sometimes, as a black woman, I get a little bit more latitude than a black man would in doing so.
For
And
sure.
yeah, and I understand, what Timothy's talking about. They carry a lot of weight on their shoulders in the world that we live in,
Hmm.
especially when you're not racially ambiguous.
Hmm.
When
Like
it's
light
very
skin.
apparent. Mm?
You're not a light skinned brother.
Yeah, when it's very apparent who you are.
Hmm.
And so, but that's the thing that with my kids, and I have a grandson. He's 14 years old. And my biggest every day, I tell him, like, I have to prep him to deal with the school system. And going back to the earlier conversation, our school systems weren't designed to educate; they were designed to indoctrinate.
Hmm.
And I'll leave it there. But
Right.
I have to teach him how to handle, because when his teachers look at him, he's 14 years old, he's 6 feet tall. They don't look at him and see a 14-year-old boy.
Hmm.
They see a grown man.
A
And
target.
so a target. And so I have to teach him how to handle situations and certain phrases to say that reminds them that he has parents and a grandmother that will show up in their face. So you know um we have to equip our kids in that aspect. So um it's a lot. And to piggyback on something Ian said, what we teach our kids, our white counterparts, they don't have to have these type of discussions with their children.
I
They
agree.
don't.
I agree.
Their fears are not our fears, and our fears are not their fears. So
I agree, because I had to have a hard conversation with my 8-year-old grandson, and in terms of, I'm saying, you're hearing all these helicopters, you're seeing the protests, and we need to have a honest conversation about what's going on. And his stance initially was, why I hate. I said, don't hate any one particular race per se, hate the actions. And so we got to do what we got to do to ensure that we can survive this and live to tell it. And so we have to keep training and educating our youths in terms of how do we handle, how do we go for it. But I still say, in summing up, I'd like to hear from others, but I'll still say one of the things that we definitely want to do is get organized in terms of our approach.
Yeah, I agree with you. We
Well,
do need to get organized.
Yeah, I just appreciate this forum discussion here, Veron, and on the note of organization, and we organizing as a people. I think that should be the mantra of, in conclusion of this conversation here. I think if we organize as a people, and it might be hard because there's a lot of trust issues between us. I mean, for whatever
Great,
reason, we don't trust each other,
great
and
point.
that for some reason that for some way that need to be healed. We don't love each other, and that need to be fixed. We don't appreciate each other, and that needs to stop. We need to learn how to love, trust, and appreciate our black brothers and sisters. I think if we put all of this together, we'll be a stronger force to be reckoned with, and that's probably where it needs to start from here. I'm a firm believer that we do not need to go out there and destroy our communities. I'm not for the rioting. I'm not a supporter of that. I think at the end of the day, we're only destroying our own self. I mean,
Resources.
just like if you get mad with your wife or your husband and you go to your house and you just damage your television set, you mash up your fridge, and you're just destroy everything, and then the next day you come back and be like, oh man, I gotta live in this house without a TV, a fridge, and anything else. So I'm not for destroying things in our own neighborhood. I think that we could use our economical power. I think we could use our strength and our black privilege, which is our resilience, to get up. And that's just my perspective and my conclusion on the topic.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Junior, and I definitely agree. It's no one. It's not a one approach. It has to be collective. And I'd like to hear from you, even Ian, Donna, Tim. What do you think? Taking what should be our takeaway from this discussion this evening? Because I'm sure that you have maybe a mindset as to what we can do as a people to come out better than where we are right now.
First and foremost, we need to focus on the children. Me being an educator for 29 years, children are very ripe to hear leadership. So if we're teaching them to get the education, to respect others, to respect yourself, to defend yourself, to know the law, know your rights, and make sure that these things are enforced, that's where it starts. But we also have to hold the older generation accountable for not being cowards. We need to learn how to show the young people how we should stand up, because when you keep bending down, it's hard to stand up straight again. So between the accountability, loving ourselves, focusing on the community, these are I'm in the community all the time, teaching children and letting them know that they're awesome. They're destined for greatness. I say that to every student that I teach. You are destined for greatness. I say that to everybody. It's one of my hashtags, actually, destined for greatness. And once we create that spirit of accomplishment and achievement, and they know that they could do some things, they do it. I don't know the stories of everybody else, but I routinely have taught children who have their master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. Ian and Donica vouch. I go to graduations more than funerals. So my perspective is a little differently, but at the same time, I don't want us to be targets for termination without resistance.
I agree. I totally agree. Now, Ian, in summing
Okay.
it up.
All right. Well, I think that we need to know and understand our worth. Know and understand that we are not the dregs of society. Know and understand that we actually are the ancestors. We are descendants of the people who created civilization. We are the descendants of the people who mastered mathematics and mastered building and mastered sailing ships, the Moors, everything. We are the creators of everything that is the basis of what society stands on today, which we are not taught. We got to know our history, know our worth, love each other, know that guy standing next to you is not just some other dumb black dude. He is another descendant of a king. You are descendant of a king and a queen. Our daughters are queens. Our sons are kings. We got to first teach ourselves our worth and not allow to make us feel less than or
Any.
treat us less. Even if it costs me my life, you're not going to treat me like I'm less than. And that will
I
be a test for those coming behind me to know, well, Ian went out because he wasn't going to be treated like less than. So I'm
exactly.
not going to be less than.
Thank you so
And
much. I agree. I totally agree. Donna, just your final words before we close because we're almost at the end of the program.
Okay, real quick, I think one of the things we really need to do is, and it was discussed earlier, is focus on our purchasing power. And as collectively, if we were to decide today, you know what, we're going to contact and pick random corporation, ABC Corporation, ask where's your stance on, the injustices that have recently taken place in the Black community. And if they don't have a stance, then, their silence is compliance. And we need to
Hmm.
not spend our dollar there.
Exactly.
We really need to be very organized and strategic on where we're spending our dollar, because oftentimes when you talk about spending money in the community, maybe your homeowner's insurance or your car insurance or things like that, there's not an insurance carrier to do that for you. And I don't want to call out any big companies here, but
Mhm.
focus on those and get them to fall behind us as well, because we really need to recognize the power of our dollar.
I agree.
And we've become very comfortable. I can't see in today's time that people would be willing to walk anywhere rather than take a bus or something like that. But we have to be willing to be uncomfortable for a period of
Exactly.
time if we
Hmm.
want to see results.
I believe. I totally agree. I totally agree. Guys, it was a lovely evening with you guys on here. I've taken away so much from this. I definitely have a somewhat different approach in terms of how I'll go forward with this, even when it comes to my children, my grandchildren. But to have knowledge is to have power, and to have power is to become empowered to make a difference, to make change, and something that is not only going to affect your family but affect your community. And I think we have to be more community minded as opposed to, well, me, because as I saw someone posted earlier, you can go fast by yourself, but you can go far collectively. So we
Yes.
definitely want to take that collective approach. I mean, I know we talk about certain holidays when we talk about collective bargaining, and I mean collective strength. I'm sorry,
hello?
ours as a community, and we definitely need to get back to that, but also move forward in that mindset that we can make the changes, because as I said, what we've been doing, unfortunately, it has not made any dramatic changes for us for the better. As they say, this is not anything new, it's just being filmed. So now we're seeing it for what it is on camera, but it's been going on, and it will continue if we keep doing the same thing that we've always done. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you, Tim.
One
I
last thing.
Go ahead.
I would like to extend an invitation to you, and you can get in touch with me through Tim. If you want to learn proper firearm use, I'm in Pennsylvania. You can come out there and I'll teach you.
Well, thank you so much for that invitation. I'm definitely going to take you up on that.
Not a problem.
Not too far from there. So you'll be seeing me. I'll be in touch. Thank you
Not a
so
problem.
much.
You're
Donna,
quite welcome.
Yeah.
thank you so much. I know in Cali you probably get to carry, right?
Yeah, you have to get a permit. Florida's a right to carry state. You didn't need one. And
Okay.
anyone listening in Florida, Wednesdays women shoot for free. So
Wow.
find your local gun range.
Okay. This is in memory of so many that we've lost. By names, it's too many to mention, but just to mention a few, we
Remember little boys, little girls, no weapon formed in this world.
Robinson, Romaine Brisbane, Tamir Rice, Laquan McDonald, Eric Garner, Michael Brown Jr., Kadeem Simon. Too many of our Black lives have been lost due to police brutality or law enforcement personnel. We need to take our lives and our youth back. Thank you guys for tuning in and enjoy this outro by my son Benor. We'll make it through.
Dedicated to you and you. Know that it might be hard to believe sometimes, but we'll make it through. Tough times don't last forever. As long as we stick together, we make it through. Remember little boys, little girls, no weapon formed in this world shall we will make it through. Mother, father, sister, brother, yeah, we'll make it through.